Federal employees have until midnight tonight to respond to this email. It's from the Office of Personnel Management. And here's the subject line. What did you do last week? Workers were instructed to give 5 bullet points of things they've accomplished. And before that email went out, Elon Musk, the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, previewed that email on X saying, quote, failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. Now, despite that threat, here's the list of government agencies already pushing back on the directive, telling their employees to not respond. It includes the FBI, State Department, Department of Defense, and the Office of National Intelligence. CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi is live in D.C. with more on all of this. Olivia, thanks for being here today. What are these agencies saying, and why are they telling their employees to not respond?
Yeah, Mugo, it's good to be with you. The 6 words that shocked the federal government. What did you do last week? Elon Musk requesting 5 bullet points about what they did, and they have to turn it in by 5 p.m. today. And no response means that they are accepting resignation. So we're already seeing some pushback from federal agencies, and this is really some of the first pushback we have been seeing from Trump's cabinet secretaries against Elon Musk and Doge and their efforts to cut spending. This has been largely some pushback that we're seeing from these secretaries. Let me just walk you through what some of them have said. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, told her employees not to respond because a lot of the work that national intelligence does is highly critical, highly classified, and probably not something that should be responded to in a reply all email of what they did for last week. The undersecretary for personnel and readiness in the Pentagon wrote in a post and put it on X, quote, when and if required, the department will coordinate responses to the email you've received from OPM. For now, please pause any response to the OPM email titled, what did you do last week? So this is just some of the pushback we're starting to see from these secretaries and undersecretaries against Elon Musk and Doge and their requirements for response. But this still raises a lot of questions, namely, who is going to be combing through the millions of emails that they are expected to be responded that Elon Musk is expecting a response from. One, if they did not reply, who will be tracking who did not reply? And also, what if they responded but didn't answer the 5 things or that prompt? This is such a broad email to send to millions of federal workers requiring them to respond. But what's the next step? That's what we've been asking and what we'll be watching very, very closely.
Olivia, staying on that topic, Sean Duffy, that's the Department of Transportation Secretary, he shared his list of his accomplishments on X this morning. What exactly did it say?
Well, if there is one cabinet secretary that appears to be complying with this email, it is Sean Duffy at the Department of Transportation. He listed out 5 things. Let me just read through his list. He said, Mr. President, 5 things I did last week. He lists terminating congestion pricing in New York. He said he launched an investigation into the California high-speed rail project that cost several $billions. He said he saved $10 million a year by eliminating redundant and outdated landlines across the U.S. He also visited the Air Traffic Control Command Center in Virginia to talk about tech upgrades to that system. And then he went out to Burbank, California and visited that control tower out there where he said he heard from air traffic controllers about how to improve conditions and retain and recruit more controllers. I should note, though, that this email still caused confusion and concern among the Air Traffic Controllers Union, who wondered if their employees need to respond to this to say what 5 things they did last week. I should note that this is a very highly overworked workforce that works 6 days a week. So adding to that, they would need to respond to this of what they did last week. Also, these are critical employees that are severely understaffed as well. So they will need to be responding to this email. Secretary Duffy said that the Department of Transportation must comply with this email from the OPM at the request of Musk and Doge. So important to note there that they will also be having to answer this email as well.
Okay, and while we have you here, we hit another deadline just last night from the U.S. Agency for International Development. That one placed all USAID direct hires deemed non-essential on administrative leave. What else do we know about that?
Yeah, this is another really big development as far as the federal workforce. We know that all but a very selective few of USAID employees are now placed on administrative leave. This comes after a federal judge, who I should note is a Trump appointee, had a temporary pause on firing these employees from USAID. That pause expired on Friday, allowing this move to go forward. So a lot of these workers got an email over the weekend notifying them whether or not they would be staying in their jobs or placed on administrative leave, and that went into effect as of last night at 11:59 p.m. We know there are possibly as many as 4,200 employees that this may impact, and we also know, according to that email, that about 2,000 of them are impacted in duty stations across the U.S. So not only impacting humanitarian assistance abroad, but potentially work here in the U.S., on the continental U.S. So interesting to note there that this is all unfolding as well. Something to watch very closely as Trump and the Trump administration and DOJ seek to really overhaul what the federal workforce looks like.
Okay, CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi, thank you.